welcoming everybody to our Mauday Thursday service, whether you are joining us in real time or whether you are seeing this later as a recorded presentation. In the instructions that would have come with the worship bulletin, we certainly suggested that you might set up your own worship space in your home in anticipation for this time together. So, for example, I have a candle, I have a cross that's on the table, a bowl of water and a towel to wash hands at some point. I have my Bible, but probably the most important thing, and I was going to say if you have nothing else, something to drink, some sort of beverage, and some sort of bread to eat as part of the service itself. Again, we're going to begin by lighting. I'm going to worship is there on in your bulletin. It's going under the heading of lighting the candle. Light and peace in Jesus Christ. Sisters and brothers, Christ shows us his love by becoming a humble servant. Let us draw near to God this night and confess our sin in the truth. The gospel lesson tonight comes from the Gospel of John from the 13th chapter. It was just before the Passover feast. Jesus knew the time had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he now showed them the full extent of his love. The evening meal was being served, and the devil had already prompted Judas Iscariot, son of Simon, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with a towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand." "No," said Peter, "you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you too part with me. You have no part with me." "Then, Lord," Simon Peter replied, "not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." Jesus answered, "A person who has had a bath needs only to wash his feet. His whole body is clean. And you are clean, though not every one of you." For he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said not everyone was clean. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you'll be blessed if you do them." When Judas Iscariot was gone, Jesus said, "Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will glorify the Son in himself, and will glorify him at once. My children, I will be with you only a little longer. You will look for me, and just as I have told the Jews, so I tell you now, where I am going, you cannot come. A new commandment I give to you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, all men who know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." My friends, this is the word of God for us, the people of God. Question for you.
Thanks be to God.
What makes a day, any day, a special day to remember? Above all else, it must be a day when some major event has happened in our life. An event that's so significant, so life-changing, that the details of that event are etched in our memory. Might be an event like the very first day of school, the day you first fell in love, the day John F. Kennedy was shot, September 11, 2001, or maybe the day you said yes to God. All these events have the potential to be a special day for us to remember. In our Christian tradition, a significant event to remember would be the last meal that Jesus shared with his disciples in the upper room. Jesus and his close friends had gathered to celebrate the Jewish festival of Passover, a worship service that commemorated the night when God freed Israel from the bondage of slavery in Egypt. Regardless of which gospel writer you prefer, the story of the last meal Jesus shared with his disciples is filled with Passover imagery. Jesus is the spotless sacrificial lamb, blood being shed to secure the rescue of the people from their bondage. The promise that God's people were now free to live in community of freedom and in communion with a loving God. Now, yes, there are other days of great importance in the Christian calendar: Good Friday, Easter, Pentecost, Christmas. So why is it then that this supper, where Jesus and his friends celebrated the age-old Passover meal, is so important to us today? What has made this a special day? The answer is simple. Because it was on this night that Jesus asked his followers to do some special things. In remembrance of me was the phrase he used. Now let's be clear here. Jesus was not simply asking this small group of friends to recall the special feelings of this Last Supper in the weeks and months to come. Jesus was instead asking for acts of remembering from all who believe. So whenever we gather to share the bread and cup, we are asked to remember as we celebrate a sacrament that reconnects us to Christ again and again. Back in 2003, I had the opportunity to tour England with Bishop Marion Edwards of the North Carolina Annual Conference. And one of the places we visited was Coventry, England, and its medieval cathedral that had been destroyed by German bombs during World War II. The cathedral at Coventry was so badly damaged that the people of this their beautiful structure. The cathedral ruins remain today as they were a fully visible testament to the devastation that occurred in that war. But at the same time, they built a beautiful modern cathedral right beside the ruins of the medieval structure, where it stands as a proud reminder that the broken and scattered can be reassembled, can be remembered, to use the language of Jesus. My friends, I share with you tonight that we are like the cathedral at Coventry. In the course of our daily lives, we suffer brokenness and separation from God for a variety of reasons. Yet God lovingly gathers us up every time, piece by piece, and reassembles us, remembers us, if you will, until we emerge more beautiful than we were before. The same is true for you and me whenever we gather as a Christian community to remember Jesus' Last Supper with the disciples. We are invited to recall an ancient story of liberation, of course, but more importantly, we're called to offer our broken bones to be remembered, to be healed through Jesus Christ, to be reconnected to the God who created us through the sacrament of remembering, so that liberation could happen again to us. In Jesus Christ, we're redeemed from the broken, fragmented, misshapen lives we've experienced, and we are reconnected to the true source of life and hope. Sisters and brothers, this night is truly a night to remember. Our blessing for our meal is one of the table blessings that we're all familiar with. Be present at our table, Lord. I'll sing, and again, I'll invite you to sing with me if you're able and wish to do so. Be present at our table, Lord. Be here and everywhere adored. Thy creatures bless and grant that we may feast in paradise with thee. We live in a time when hand washing has taken on a new level of importance. So if you have a bowl of water, I invite you to join with me as we wash our hands in preparation for this meal. And as you do so, as we wash together, I'm going to invite us to share the Lord's Prayer together. Quite beautifully, the Lord's Prayer takes about 20 seconds to recite, which is the recommended amount of time for effective hand washing. So let's join together in the Lord's Prayer as together we wash our hands. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed
be thy name. Thy kingdom come,
thy
thy
will
will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Give
Give us this day our daily bread,
and
and
forgive
forgive
us
us our trespasses,
as
as
we
we forgive those who
trespass
trespass against us.
And lead us
Lead us
not
not
into
into
temptation,
temptation,
but deliver
deliver
us
us from evil.
For thine
Thine
is
is the kingdom,
and the
and the
power,
power,
and
and
the
the
glory
glory forever.
Amen.
Amen.
We're going to share our meal now, our bread and whatever drink you might have. I have a cup of coffee again tonight. You might have something hot, you might have something cold, and then some bread. Might be bread, it might be a roll, it might be something sweet, it might be something very basic. Whatever was good for you is going to be just right for this meal together as we celebrate this love feast. And as we share the bread and drink, I'm going to invite you to think about the gospel reading from John that we just heard. And also I'm going to invite you to respond to a couple of questions. But first, let's take a couple of minutes to share our meal together.
Right.
So Rosie, what are you eating tonight?
Today, the nephew family is eating garlic bread.
All right.
Oh.
I could smell it over here.
Mm-hmm. So did you have spaghetti for supper?
It's Daddy's new specialty, so they request it often.
I see. Another secret. The first question tonight is, when was a time that you chose love over hate this week? And probably in the line waiting at Market Basket is probably not the best answer. When was the time you chose love over hate this week?
There was something. Jim, when I was reading today some of the comments about the licensing for church music, and
Okay.
I chose to love at that time.
As opposed to hate, huh?
Yeah, that's correct. Well, not hate, but you know.
I think it was yesterday I chose to love.
Did you get along with your brother yesterday? Or?
I think it was yesterday or a few days after I got to see my teacher
On Zoom.
on Zoom.
Have you chosen to love over hate Robert this week?
I chose to love Mama, Daddy, Robert, and I chose to love this moment.
Okay.
Oh.
Uh-huh. So Robert, what about you? Nothing comes to mind, huh? So our second question is, when was there a time that you found it difficult to love this week? Has there been a time when you have felt it was hard to love other people? What do you think, Rose?
I think it was hard to love Robert when we were arguing.
Uh-huh. I can understand that.
Jim, remember when I told you about that time I chose to love?
Yes.
That was the same time.
Okay. Lois, what about you? How's your week been? When have you found it difficult to love?
You talking to me?
I'm talking to you.
Well, yesterday the people were starting the landscaping, and they have this big machine, and I was sitting right by my patio doors trying to read a good book, and they left this huge machine running right there, driving me crazy. So that was kind of hard.
There we go. So my third question is, when was the time this week you felt loved by someone?
Every day.
This morning when I woke up.
Yeah. Every day I feel loved by my children.
There we go.
Right now I'm feeling love.
Wonderful.
When I'm with my parents and my grandparents, I feel love. And there's his answer. Mama, do you have an answer?
Well, I have some difficulties at work when people don't respect the social distancing, and I have to remind them of some boundaries. But I've been feeling a lot of love lately because a lot of people are coming in and thanking me for being there and for doing my job and appreciating what we're going through for them.
Tom, what about you? We haven't heard from you tonight.
I know I've been trying to think about when it's been difficult to love this week. Are we on the question number 2 still?
Either 2 or 3.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I constantly feel tough love from my wife Maureen when she reminds me how many times a day I'm supposed to wash my hands.
Yes.
And you know, she's very cautious, and thankfully, because she's got enough caution in her for both of us. So.
Well, and since we're taping this, if she should play back this service later on, that will be a very appropriate answer.
Daddy, do you have an answer? Daddy?
Come on, Daddy.
I confess that I felt loved this week by one of the members of my wife's church. We, like all of us, we've been thinking about the need to wear a mask when we go out in public. And I was especially mindful of the fact that Wednesday afternoon, we were going to be delivering Easter baskets to our children, our young folks in the church. So Lynn spoke to one of her church members who made both of us some very nice masks in time for me to have it to make deliveries Wednesday afternoon. So I was traveling down the road with my mask on and a pair of gloves that I had liberated from the kitchen at the church.
Oh.
And I kind of felt a little self-conscious, but I was probably more aware than I even normally am aware of how many other people driving on the road had masks on as well. So it's the sign of the times.
I'm afraid so.
Well, our grandma has been making masks. Yep. And
Oh, wonderful.
sometimes she even delivers some. Like today, she just like delivered some to her cousin and also some to Judy. Yes, Miss Judy. We delivered some to her.
Okay, that's wonderful. There's not specifically a prayer time in our service tonight, but I do feel a need to share with you and Mark, together you and I will share this to the broader faith community tomorrow. But we have a second individual in our church family that we believe has tested positive for the coronavirus.
Oh, no.
It probably will not come as a surprise if I share that Linda Quartermarsh
Oh,
Oh, no.
was admitted to the Leahy Clinic today.
Oh,
Oh,
When I talked with her last night, they had her coronavirus test had not come back yet, but her white cell count has changed so dramatically that the doctors felt a need to bring her into the hospital and be able to have access to health care if her situation should get worse.
oh,
She's of good spirits. She's scared, as all of us would be, but she knows that her church family is with her and praying for her. So I just
absolutely.
will lift her up as we gather tonight, and over the weekend we will lift her up to the wider church community at North Salem.
Jim,
Oh, my goodness.
does she live with Mary Ann, Linda?
I'm sorry?
Does Linda Quartermarsh live with Mary Ann?
She was, yes, yeah.
Okay.
She did not, Linda did not have another place to go, so for the last week, they've been basically living at opposite ends of the house. I think they certainly did everything they could, but I think it's quite possible the infection might well have occurred before Mary Ann tested positive.
Before she knew, right?
Mm,
Yeah. So please keep Linda in your prayers as we go forward this weekend.
yeah.
So let's join together in the prayer after the meal, and then we'll go to our benediction. For these and all your mercies, God, may your holy name be
Blessed
blessed
be
and
God.
praised
and praise.
And
through Jesus
Jesus
Christ.
Christ our Lord.
Amen.
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 And our benediction. May Jesus Christ, who for our sake became obedient unto death,
Unto death,
even
even
death,
death on a cross,
keep
keep you
you
and strengthen
strengthen
you
you
This
You,
night.
tonight
I,
and forever.
and,
Amen.
Amen.
and
This brings the shared part of our service to an end. But if you look at the instructions in your worship bulletin, it says that after the service, you might consider stripping your table. If we were together at North Salem at the end of our Mauday Thursday service, we would have had a time and we would have taken some of the symbols of the church out in preparation for Good Friday and for Holy Saturday. Obviously, we can't do that in our current situation, but that doesn't mean that we couldn't do something in our own homes as a way of reminding ourselves of the events that are coming yet. We're celebrating the Last Supper tonight, but before this night was over, Jesus and some of his disciples went to pray at the Garden of Gethsemane. While he was there, he was arrested by the soldiers of the temple of Pontius Pilate, and was taken, was tried, and on Good Friday tomorrow, he was crucified. So you might consider at the end of our time together, clearing your table, perhaps washing dishes, putting them away, and then you might consider emptying everything from your table, leaving the candle perhaps for the very last thing, and perhaps even sitting for a few minutes with just a candle, kind of reflecting upon the significance of this day, the story that we just read from John, perhaps the things that we shared about love and trying to show love over hate. in short, just finding a way to kind of continue this time of worship a little bit longer, even though we will disconnect, if you will, from one another. So I invite you now to go in peace. May the Lord watch over and keep you safe, truly, until we meet again on Easter morning. Good night, everyone.
Good night,
night.
Pastor. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good
Good
night.
night. Good night.
Bye.